5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Liftoff, and the clock has started.
Kevin Bailey, 46, butter knife.
Brandon Brown, 44, guardrail. 37,
Flemings. Henry Richard, 57, high heels.
Respect.
Coming down 59, switch hitter.
Switch hitter, respect.
Let's go to 43, break.
Rick.
6, Rooney.
Rooney, respect.
David Smelser, 42, Christopher.
Christopher.
Will Smelser, 10, Cheetah Boy.
Cheetah Boy.
Brown, 16, median.
Median.
Jason Short, 43, Honeydew.
Honeydew.
Ryan Andreessen, 40, Windex.
Windex.
David 33, Five Live.
Blindside.
1 Windows, 31, Lamper.
Lamper.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
What is up, everyone? This is Steam, comms Q of F3 Knoxville, and I'm sitting around a circle of awesome high-impact men. 3 more, to be exact. There were more that were going to join us for this conversation as we talk about 2023. We're going to do a recap of this past year, what went down from different perspectives of guys on our SLT, and just all the cool things that we did. Probably not all of them. We don't have time to cover every single one of them. But we're going to talk about this past year and some of the awesome growth we've seen as a region. So I'll let these guys introduce themselves, and hopefully you enjoy this conversation as we recap the year.
All right, so this is Onstar, first FQ for F3 Knoxville. And on my left, we have
Mermaid, the second FQ for F3 Knoxville.
All right, and Kickflip, Nantan for the region.
Yeah. Third FQ could not be here, Ocho. He already had a gig booked for more money than we offered him. And the Weasel Shaker also could not be here. But you'll hear from them a little later as well. But, scheduling's hard. It's the Christmas season, right? Mermaid is hosting, so thank you for having us in your new home. Very new home. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it, and this is somewhat unscripted, but we're excited just to share what's been going on this past year. A lot of stuff you've probably seen, maybe on Slack or social media, or a lot of stuff you probably have not seen. And these guys will be able to give some good character references and background behind the scenes as well. So we'll go around first, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about ourselves, which is fun, how long we've been in F3, and the role we have. So I'll start. I am Steam. Real name is Dan. No one knows that because we don't use our real names.
Dang.
But who's this guy? Yeah, who is Dan?
You guys
actually-
daylight.
It is surprising how many first names I don't know in F3. But man, I've been involved with F3 since 2016, 17. Changed my life. Love it. Big fan. It has been a game changer for sure. And more on that. But I'm the comms Q, so love communication. Get to have a hand with our social media and regional comms, things like that. So the whole I'm not a professional thing absolutely applies, but I love getting to help other people use their skill sets and talents and gifts they've been given to influence others for forward advancement. So that's a little bit of the comms queue, kind of what I run with.
All right. I'm Arthur Diaz, Onstar, first FQ. Been with F3 actually the shortest of anyone in this table here. I've only been in F3 for about a year and a few months, but it's been very impactful in my life. And it was a great opportunity because it came in a moment there I was looking for an opportunity to have other men have an impact in my life, but also have the opportunity to have an impact in other people's lives, other men's lives. And again, not a professional as well. There are definitely guys in better shape than me in F3 Knoxville. I've been humbled more than once, but it's fitness is a passion of mine, and it's great to have the opportunity to share what I've learned over the years, to be able to have the opportunity to torture all of the region at once with the metric workouts.
That's right. That's right.
I know I've
Yeah.
been cussed out a lot this year, but
Out of respect. Out of respect.
out of
That's for sure.
respect, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it has been a great experience and definitely a big impact in my life.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah. They call me Bradley outside of F3, but inside of F3, I'm known as Mermaid.
Yeah.
I got that moniker in 2019. Started at JUCO, and the story's not very interesting. It was like, I'm out of breath. I can't talk. Tell us about yourself. I'm Bradley. I'm married, 3 kids, all girls. I used to swim. They go flipper. That's too nice. Mermaid, and that's all.
Oh,
Well, I didn't even
man.
get to the embarrassing story. You know, I've worn Mermaid for 4 years with
Wow.
a badge of honor. It's kind of a unique one. It worked for me. So if you notice on my tree over here, you guys at home can't see it. Dumpster Dive was kind
Oh,
enough.
it's
He
beautiful.
picked up a mermaid man with a
see it,
pink
man.
flamingo
With a
around
flamingo.
his waist.
Taking a picture of that's going to make its way onto Slack.
Yeah, it's pretty cute. And so Christmas in the Mermaid household didn't complete without
That's awesome.
that ornament. I did start in 2019. I was EH'd by a guy named Mandela, and
Oh, yeah.
I was out of shape. I needed to find some fitness, needed that balance in my life. And once I got into the routine, I've been about as regular as you can be. I don't miss very often.
It's true.
And it's been a big impact in my life for fitness, for the fellowship, for the faith component. I started with several group of guys. We branched off from JUCO, started the Shamrock AO right during COVID, and I think F3 really embodied what I needed in that time. It was a really stressful time in life and work, and it really became real in that moment. I was really glad we had F3 in a really difficult time. So just latched on, kind of like OnStar. It's been great for me. You want to replicate that for a lot of guys. So that's the short story about Mermaid.
Do you ever wonder what it'd be like if you were living life as Flipper? Like, do you ever wonder who that guy would be? Like, if you had been named Flipper?
Yeah,
Totally different, right?
It's
I can't even imagine that. It's a mermaid.
not Merman. Mermaid.
Mermaid. That's right.
Kickflip, I started with F3 Knoxville in April of 2019, so April this year will be 5 years for me, and like the 3 of you, I would say it's just been transformational for me. It was really a pivot point in my life where I was just gliding down and hit F3 and then started to climb back up, and the trajectory of my life in my fitness, in my fellowship, and in my faith. It really has done for me what it claims to be possible of, and that is being a transformational, invigorating moment in a man's life. So it really has been, and I appreciate you 3 men and everybody else has had an impact. I was named out of the project. Snaggletooth named me Kickflip, and it was because I used to go out with Archie and pre-ruck with him, and then he would go to this thing. And after a little bit of doing that with him, I finally, okay, I'll go with you to this workout after the ruck. And day one was just it stuck. You know, I loved it from day one. And I didn't know, I didn't know I'm supposed to tell about myself. I'm supposed to tell an embarrassing story, and didn't know anything. Didn't have any good stories. And Archie knew me from our childhood. We grew up together in Missouri, and he knew. Wow. Hey, tell them about how you used to skateboard around town, terrorizing the city. And you had blue hair and painted fingernails. And well, yeah, there's a. Kickflip was a skateboard trick. That's how I got the name.
That's a cool name. Yeah, I did not know that. What?
Kickflip with blue hair.
Dude,
And
yes.
Nails, yeah.
Picture somewhere. I'll find them.
Oh, amazing. All you Facebookers, go check them out. Dude, very cool. That's fun. It's fun to hear guys' stories, you know. The other 2 guys are Weasel Shaker, Pele, and Third FQ, Ocho, also good dudes. Like I said, they couldn't be here, but you'll probably hear from them as well. We'll get them synced up and get some info from them too. But Yeah, very cool. So what we want to do today is I'm just going to toss out some questions, and this specific episode, which is one I hope we will continue for years to come, is just a recap episode as we look back at the past year and even look forward into the next year. We're going to cover some overview things like, hey, what stood out to you from this year from a regional perspective, but then we'll also kind of dive deeper and go into, okay, so as the first FQ, second FQ, Nantan, comms Q even as well, like what stood out to you in your specific sphere of influence, your focus, your role this year as well, which I think would be cool. So, Onstar, I'm gonna go with you since you're first, man. Like what stood out to you the most this year as you look back at this past year, just broad overview from the region.
I think this first thing that stood out was right early in the year what happened with Cardinal, and
Yeah.
just the response not only from the region but from all of F3.
Yeah,
That's
huge.
That was it was easily a moment that could have shook the region, that could have damaged F3 Knoxville, and not only that not happened, it strengthened the region, it strengthened everyone. That was the first thing that stood out to me, and just the opportunity to see how many men we have that are passionate for what's going on in F3, how many people are looking for exactly the opportunity to be better, do better. And it's something that sometimes you just need that little opportunity to do. And F3 takes you a little bit out of your everyday life.
A lot.
Just doing the routine, just doing what you got to do, and forces you to push a little further. So
yeah,
it was great to see a lot of people diving into the metric workouts, diving into different challenges, whether it was the first half challenges or the third half challenges, and everything we could do to bring people together and just challenge everyone to be a little bit better, and in turn challenge me to do better, to live up to that. If I'm challenging other people, I have to be right there with them. So that has been awesome throughout the year, and it's been great to watch that unfold.
Good stuff.
So I'm just curious, man. The Cardinal, January 11th of 23 changed F3 Knoxville. Like you said, it could have changed us this direction or that direction. It was going to change us.
Yes.
Like Steam said at the beginning of this is entirely unscripted. But I'm just kind of curious to hear everybody else's thoughts about what happened with Cardinal.
So I had the pleasure or displeasure of traveling a lot this year, and every time I travel, I try to find a F3 community plug into. So I've been to 3 or 4 states this year. I don't know, maybe a dozen different AOs outside of Knoxville.
Wow.
And I always try to wear the Cardinal shirt because it's an easy conversation. And if you haven't posted downrange, you really should. It is one of my favorite things to do. It's like, I don't know anybody. You get out of the car, you got F3, gear on. You see that shovel flag, and it's just like being at home. Tell that story about your name, and it's immediately, I don't know anybody, but it's my people.
Yeah.
And so when you got that Cardinal shirt on, it's like, oh yeah, that's your region. And to hear that story, like you said, impact other regions, and that story really spread. So, people all over the country have done that workout and heard that story. Some people don't. That's fine. But it's been an interesting year. I don't know how it impacted. I do know how it impacted Knoxville. That's just a sort of a unique perspective to experience that in multiples.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I didn't have the opportunity to post downrange, but either through the F3 Nation Slack or even through Twitter, I talked to a few other guys from other regions. And, what region are you from? Oh, I'm from F3 Knoxville. Every time, or most of the time, someone will say, oh man, that what happened with Cardinal, that was like it had an impact that went beyond the region. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I never had the pleasure of knowing Cardinal. He's only in about 6 weeks, and it was this VQ when he passed. But since then, Cardinals family moved from Roane County to Knoxville. And he goes to a middle school close to Shamrock where we have 4 or 5 of the teachers from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So he was wearing an F3 shirt one day, and these teachers go, "Oh, F3, your dad in there?" And then they didn't know the story, but then they sort of felt bad. They said, "Well, my dad was in F3 and he passed away." They'd heard the history. So it's really cool how it comes full circle, because now Cardinal Jr. is in a place where there's at least 4 or 5 men from our group that can keep an eye on him. And this year, Cardinal's son came to know Jesus, and that's just a pretty cool story.
You got baptized, I think, a couple weeks ago. Man, that was cool to see. Yeah. I'll say I also did not know Cardinal personally, have not worked out with him when he was with us, and yet I did go downrange a couple weeks ago, actually, to Sarasota, Florida, and they were talking, "Hey man, we did our Cardinal workouts with the rest of the nation," and they actually still do it from time to time too. And now I had never met someone outside of Knoxville that had done that. So I had been doing all of our social media except Twitter when Cardinal passed. And the thing that stuck out to me is that there were, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of men that reached out, like thousands of men on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter as well. Like you mentioned, Onstar. They're like, "Hey man, what can we do? Like, how can we help his family?" And then the workout came out, and obviously they were doing the tributes, and then you just see workouts across the nation, and specifically with the U.S. first, and in these red shirts for Cardinal, right? Guys that like I would have never known, unless they had messaged us on Facebook or Instagram,
Right.
And then then we got messages from South Africa. This F3 group in South Africa that were doing their group that was doing their workout. South Korea that was doing their workout. And so then it expanded to a global impact. And you think the story got out of this guy leading his first VQ, and then had a tragic event happen, and it took his life, and how it affected literally thousands of people across the world. Really made an impact for me, because I think we know somewhat of the impact F3 has, right? Like our own personal lives, because we see it in Knoxville every day. And if you are on the F3 Nation Slack or social media, you understand the impact. But something like that, I think, only magnifies it, and it definitely did for me. So,
I think that moment puts it F3 into some of the fitness perspective for a lot of us. A lot of us, when we joined up, are out of shape. We don't eat right. Maybe we're still out of shape. Maybe we still don't eat right.
Absolutely.
When you experience something like that, it sort of puts into perspective that maybe we do need to make some changes, and maybe we do have a group of people that we can surround ourselves with that'll help us get better, so that we don't repeat that. It's a real lesson that's unfortunate, but obviously it impacted a lot of men. And as we come up on the anniversary, I've heard some chatter about doing that workout, pushing that out, and maybe memorializing him at that moment, maybe for years to come.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just struck by, you said, global impact, and I don't think F3 Nation has ever seen anything like it. The global impact of this one event. But then you can zoom all the way into the family. Yeah. And at every level you saw impact, right? On the region, on the AO, on the family. And I'm just struck by this young man, Clay, the 13-year-old son of this man, because I have a son the same age. And to just see that men are still coming around him and celebrating things with him, or they're at his school next to him and put their arm on him, makes me so proud. And gives me assurance too that if something were to happen to me, that I know you guys, I would expect you guys to do that same thing for my family. And likewise, I would be there for yours. So that's the beauty of F3. The other thing that I'll mention is, I think 2 of you were on the leadership team at the time, but shortly after, the leadership team meets every month, and shortly after this, or maybe it was a month or so that went by, we actually presented 3 certificates of commendation to some of the leaders, because we talked about, this event was could have affected the region one way or the other. It could have crushed us, and instead, it just really it inspired us.
Yeah.
And why? What was the difference maker? I think the difference maker was really 3 men. And so we gave a certificate of commendation, and I pulled it up, a picture of it on my phone that I can show you guys. And I'll read it, but it went to 3 men. It was Bobby and Skeletor and Piston. We gave these certificates to. I'll read this one that I have a picture of on my phone. It was in recognition of your exemplary leadership during and after a tragedy within our region, for leading with compassion, humility, and decisiveness, for being an outstanding representative of F3 Knoxville to the international F3 community. Bobby, Skeleton, and Piston were really the difference makers. So let's just celebrate those guys. And when we gave this to them, we were talking and saying, like, what can we do that would just show you our deep appreciation and our deep honor that we have for you men as leaders? And so we gave this to them. I said, my hope is this, that this might find its way onto your resume. And someday down the road, years from now, you're applying for some executive leadership position. And I get a phone call from somebody that says, this guy, you call him Bobbit?
Explain that.
This guy, Kevin Brett, applied for a position with our company. And he said, you have a story to tell. And I could then tell that story for him and just share what an amazing leader he was through this tragedy. And really, again, the difference maker was the 3 men. So celebrate none of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how fitting it is that a year that started like that, and with them demonstrating that sort of leadership. In December, we come to a moment where they start fishing into their own region. It's very fitting, and shows how their leadership was essential to it. Exactly, not let that crush us, but inspire us to grow further.
Yeah, and those guys did inspire a lot. If you back up preceding Cardinal's death, his father-in-law actually died the week before the fire. So Cardinal's wife, Cardinal's kids lose their father and their grandfather within about a week's time. And so those 3 guys, from the funeral to helping, literally clean up that house for the father-in-law, to move that family, to repair the house that they're moving to. I think she moved into her father-in-law's house, or her father's house, the man who passed away. So to help make that, to help have less, that reminder of him, to make it more her own. Those guys owned every step of that process and staying in touch now. So that commendation was for a moment in time, but that moment in time continued well beyond when that award was given.
Yeah, that's the podcast. Thank you for coming. Like you said, Onstar, it's hard to start off the year like that. Like, that is such a defining thing for a region, for anyone, for the family, right? And the coolest story that came out of that is now, for me at least, Cardinal Jr. gave his life to Christ, right? And now he got baptized, and I can't help but think that a big part of that was because of the F3 men that stepped up and stood in the gap in his life and in Andrea's life and in that whole family's life. So I think that's what we're called to do. I think that's why we work out for 45 minutes. I think that's why guys show up, because they're looking for something, and they're called to stand in the gap, and we've seen that play out this year, which is really unique. So
even though it's the defining moment too, it's not the only great moment from this year, right? Like,
that's right. We've had been 12 months of growth. 12 months of growth, man. So why don't we go around and Kickflip, I'll start with you. From your specific role that you serve in on the SLT, from your vantage point, what has been one thing that has stood out to you from your sphere of influence, as we would call it?
Sure. I think about what stands out to me, and what is it that stood out in the whole year, and strip everything away that we do that's extra and fun. And we've got so many events, we've got so many challenges, all this stuff is going to be fun to talk about. But I think if we started with the baseline is, we've got 14 AOs. We did until we started fishing 4 away. 10 AOs left. But if you add up all the workouts that were happening, and that's the at the core of what we are, right? 45 to an hour long workouts. We did about 2,400 of those this year. And that's what we did. 2,400 times a man stood in front of other men and led them in some sort of fitness routine, right? Burpees, sometimes in the rain, sometimes in the cold. And he did that, and he got better for it. And then at the end of that, he stood up in front of these men and shared a piece of his heart with them. That is, you never see a man do that in our culture, unfortunately. But 2,400 times you saw it in Knoxville this last just 1 year.
Wow.
And we're going to do it again more than 2,000 times next year. So I think if you strip everything else away, we did nothing else. We didn't do any convergences or CSOPs or all these other fun events. We did nothing else. That alone is remarkable.
Wow.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
That 2,400 times a man volunteered his time to lead other men and then be vulnerable with them. Doesn't happen anywhere. So I just
Yeah. Where do you see that?
And we actually starfished twice.
That's right. Yeah.
You failed to remember the Smokies.
You're right, dude.
So it's tremendous.
Right.
So, you're right.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, dude. So so we start with the workouts. That's our baseline. We celebrate that, and that alone is enough to make an entire podcast about. But you're absolutely right, dude. If anything stood out to me for the year, maybe like a step back, big theme of the year, I would just go back to around November of last year. Maybe Steve and I were the only ones on the leadership team at the time, but what we talked about was let's start talking about a theme that would just focus our time and energy in the coming year, the calendar year. What we decided on was a phrase that we used: we'll get radically refocused on the mission statement. And the mission statement of F3 is to plant, grow, serve small workout groups for the invigoration of male community leadership. So we kept coming back to all these different things we can do. Let's focus on the things that promote that mission: planting, growing, and serving small workout groups, invigorating them into lead. And so you're right, dude. We starfished twice last year.
Yeah.
Most regions never starfish at all. We did it twice in 1 year.
That's huge.
We also planted 6 AO.
Yeah.
Right? Birdhouse.
Yeah, that's right.
Slumber yard. Quacking PM. Daybreak. Farm.
And got an OTB
Wow.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
You talk about getting focused on the mission statement. And we planted 6 AOs and starfish twice in 1 year. And then innumerable stories about men being invigorated, inspired to lead. And I hear all the time men sharing with me. And by the way, everything we do is not to just perpetuate more leadership amongst our ranks and to get people to serve our group. That's not the point. The point is to inspire men to serve outside of F3. And I hear stories all the time about men just stepping into their roles as leaders of their family with more confidence. Great, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And stepping into leadership roles in their workplaces, starting businesses, getting involved in their community with sports teams and churches and things like this, and just feeling like these men are being provoked into that in some sense.
Yeah,
what if
seriously.
So that's good.
I've heard it in a church before in this context, but I think it makes sense for F3. When you think about a huddle, like you go to church on a Sunday morning, like what you do here, like this is the practice, this is the training. Like what you do outside of these walls is the real game.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Like, yeah, that is a good visual, I think, for me to think about. Like anything you do in 45 minutes, like the physical, the fellowship, the faith, like all that is training, so you can go out and be that man outside of the COT, which I think is cool. Yeah. Mermaid, what about you, man? I don't want to guide you, but there was a really killer CSOP that I didn't get to go to. But if you want to, back in July, I mean, if you want to talk about that. But
we rotated on to the second FQ for the region in July. And I've had a year of lots of travel. Some of it's intentional, some of it's with work. So it's been hit or miss, but we had a convergence in July. I happened to be out of town for that in the first part of July. We came back in the second part of July. We had this event, and it was centered around an event I attended in Charleston a couple of years ago. So I missed the convergence at JUCO. I think it was 2 years ago. It happened to be in Charleston. I love to get plugged into those communities. So as I'm there, like, hey, we're doing a convergence. on Saturday. If you're here, you should join us. I go, why not?
Sure. Yeah.
So the Charleston guys converged at Folly Beach, and I show up there with about 50 dudes I've never met before, and we proceed to walk down to the beach, take our shoes off, take our shirts off, no gloves. So it's my first F3 workout in just your shorts.
Yeah.
So it was really cool, in and out of the ocean, on the beach. And I was like, if we could reproduce this here, that would be unique, right? So
Yeah.
in the essence of being unique, we came up with the term F3 in the nude, and really it was more of a
Best event we've had.
attention getter. So we had a schedule. We sort of release information a week at a time to sort of build the excitement. We had lots of questions, within the region, probably beyond the region. I think it's been talked about.
That was masterful promotion.
Yeah.
Mastering the art of
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So that workout was centered around really, if you want to boil it down, about being vulnerable. So we went to a place here in Knoxville on the lake that has a sandy beach. No shoes, no shirt, no gloves. The shorts were mandatory. F3 didn't want to create that sort of image in the community. It was bad enough seeing us like that. And there were probably 30, 35 guys out there, and loosely based that workout on what we did in Charleston. And it was about competing and having fun and just doing something different. So I'd look for that to happen again. It was tremendous. And then we talked about being vulnerable at the end in that circle of trust. And I think that growth really happens, particularly as it relates to the second half, when you get in that circle of trust and you go, I'm having trouble here. I'm facing these weaknesses here, because chances are another guy in that group has either gone through it or will be going through it, is currently going through it. So sort of a way to mentor each other when you just let your guard down and see what kind of faces you.
Yeah.
So that was when I rotated on. It was sort of lull for a while. We get busy with things. I really want that second half to be homegrown. We've really encouraged those AOs to have game nights or brewery night or have coffee after a workout. We want that to happen organically, sort of within the AO. If you guys can't show up to the AO and get together with the guys that you see 1, 2, 3 times a week, it's hard to multiply 0, right?
Sure.
So it needs to happen at some level within the AO. Then we've done some events. This fall we did Biggest Loser Challenge, where we had probably 50 guys sign up. But I think when it was all said and done, about 28 guys from the region participated in a weight loss challenge. I think the winner so we went from October 16th to December 1st. It was like 6.5, 7 weeks. The guy that lost the most was like 22 pounds in that time.
Wow.
So significant changes. I don't remember the total numbers, but those 28 guys ended up losing about 2% of their starting weight. The most was 8, 7, 6%. So there's some big losses in there.
Yeah.
There's some guys that didn't. So we're in round 2 of the Biggest Loser. That's going on now because, as I mentioned, being vulnerable, there's lots of guys that struggle with eating the right things. There's a lot of guys that struggle with consistency of exercise. There's a lot of things we can look into that. And I think when you get into, the kings and the queens, as it talks about, in the F3 region, it's easier to control the exercise, but you can't forget about the nutrition on that queen aspect. So we're gonna end this up probably in January after the Christmas season. We'll get together and we'll do a gear swap. We've all either gained weight or lost weight. Maybe we have some shirts that do fit or don't fit, or maybe we just have too many. So coming up in January, we'll all get together and buy, sell, trade some exercise gear. And, I've got 3 or 4 shirts like, I don't really like that one, or it's the wrong material, I'm too big, too little. Maybe I can bless some other guys that need that. So that'll be on the horizon.
My M fully supports me getting rid of some F3 shirts that I probably need to.
And maybe we'll have a prize. We'll count up all the F3 gear we have, and maybe we'll have a prize of more F3 gear to the guy that has the most. And then, in 2024, I think we're going to try to push out for me, when it comes to scheduling events, it's really hard to go, hey, let's all get together on Thursday. Everybody already has something, just like trying to get together for this. It's like we just need a standing date. The fourth Friday of every month, we're going to have lunch. The second Tuesday, just put it on your calendar. And then if you can come, you come. If you can't, you can't. But instead of just trying to plan something, let's go ahead and put it on the calendar and have it. And so we'll drive some activity that way. But we've seen a lot of success. We've got, I don't remember how many AOs are having coffee either after every workout, somebody will bring it, or they're meeting every week. So there's, I know the project has some unique things that they do with their guys. Ocho, and then at Silent PM, they get together and have their board meeting. Go
Legendary.
Solve the world's problems. Actually, funny story. That started as a once a month thing, and then now we do it after every single workout. 3 years later.
But that fitness is the attraction to that meeting. That fellowship is the glue, and then that faith component. An adage for what that is.
It's dynamite.
There you go. Skipping my mind. And so we really want to make that fellowship piece the glue. Those bonds. We're all busy. We're live. We all see our friends. We probably see our F3 friends more than we do the social group, because there's not a lot to interfere with that time slot in the morning, unless you're the two guys at the table to do the PM.
We go to the morning once every couple months.
I didn't know you guys even have an arm club.
That's right. I will say, though, the relationships I've formed and obviously this table is a big part of that too, have not been because we work out together.
No.
It's been, it's happened outside of the workouts, like board meetings, cafeteria, things like that, where you really get to know the guys. That's been a game changer for me, I think, too. So that's a good word. Onstar, first F, dude, you've crushed us with some metric workouts, and I love the first F challenges you're doing this month too. But tell me what stood out to you this year.
Not the IPC. That's the thing. You don't get cussed at for that.
That's the one thing we're not going to talk about.
That's the one good thing. The Ironback Challenge made maybe not be cussed for at least a month. At least there was something else that guys were cussing out more than my metric workouts.
Some good mumble chatter,
but it was fun to challenge myself to. First of all, I've never been a big cardio guy, so I've been doing fitness consistently for 6 years, way before F3, but I like lifting heavy things. That was my way of exercising, going to the gym and lifting heavy things. So F3 brought a new challenge to my life in learning how to plan workouts that were not only heavy, but also involved running or involved cardio was big for me. And it was awesome to see people embrace them even though they sucked. I've heard a few AOs complain that, great, now we have IPC every month. So what that has led me to think about, talking with Kickflip, is that we still want to have a very challenging component, but I want to also make the metric workout more accessible. So what we're probably going to have for next year, based on the lessons from this year, is just 3 metric workouts that we repeat every 3 months. So
cool.
You repeat them more often and have more of a picture of what you're doing. Simpler things, but also I want to have a challenge workout of the month. So literally embracing one IPC a month, but more of a, hey, you want to do this? Let's do this. If you don't, fine, but having those two aspects, because I think we need to push, man. I think we need to have things that are hard, do things that are hard.
That's a good
We have the guys embracing things like the Grow Ruck events that are 12 hours events. So there is that desire to do something really hard. I saw some guys like Lucille from Rampart who really embraced the metric workouts, and he crushed it. He was the most improved in almost every month.
Wow.
But I like the idea of both having something that is accessible to everybody and something for those who really want to embrace a challenge and push themselves even harder. And I think we can and we should cater to both audiences, but pushing people on, hey, come on, let's let's
Yeah.
try to see how far we can go here.
I will say sometimes for me, it's been easy to get stagnant with coming to an F3 workout. Not in the sense that it's the same thing every time, because it's not, but if you've been coming long enough, you kind of know, like, okay, disclaimer, Warmerama, workout, Mary if you have time, COT, right? And it's going to be different every time. But the thing I really liked about the metric workouts are the competition side of it, and that I know it's not going to be like a typical F3 45-minute workout that we would do a couple times a month or 3 times a month, you know. So I really have liked that part of it too. And the language you used, or y'all have used when y'all created this, was the you versus you, you know, which is, I mean, that's an F3 workout, but that language really stuck in my head too. When I've been complaining about how horrible the workouts are this year.
When it started in 2019, it was by the end of 2019 and early 2020. It may have been Herbie, may have been Mayberry, but we had some monthly challenges. So here's some things that I recommend not resurrecting. Don't resurrect bear crawl for a mile. That was brutal.
That's a Mayberry special.
And I did that. And
But memorable.
But
I remember that I'll never try it again.
years later.
I also did lunge a mile, run a mile. And I don't recommend doing that. That was pretty awful too. But then
In a workout? Like in a 45?
no, it was extra.
You just, okay.
Again, trolley, you know, you get volunteers. I've got to get trolley back, but Charlie and I are always down to try crazy things. But, you know, I think of some other things that have happened, like, you know, Make America Burpee again came out of the St. Louis.
Yes.
That's another one, that 100 burpees a day for the month of January.
What you did.
Not trying that again.
Yeah.
And then there's one in 2020. It was Miles and Merkins. It was a cool competition that was running, rucking, cycling, and Merkins. There was a point scheme. But there's been some cool things like that have happened. So it's kind of cool to be doing our own little unique thing, because it does. You get these workouts that go every day or every week. But it's nice to get like a separate challenge.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's expect that. And I'm asking a few of the men to help me plan these challenges. So I've reached out to guys who are better runners than I am to help me plan one of the challenges for runs. I still need to talk to Steam and Crisper and Blindside, so we can create maybe a ruck challenge.
I was gonna say
different teams every month can have one specific challenge for the month. And again, it's still a you versus you. It's still I want to see if I can do this. I want to see how far I can push this.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I look forward to this too next year. So I think from my perspective, from comms this year, we've talked about Cardinal, and that is obviously something that we will all never forget. And the thing that stood out to me this year from comms perspective is kind of from the behind the scenes perspective. Like when you engage with our Facebook or Instagram, you see what we post, right? Like you just see the public facing side of it. The privilege that I've gotten this year, and now that Base Salary and Eliza and some others that are helping do some awesome things with our Facebook and Instagram, they are killing it. Like that is not me, that is all them, and they are crushing it. But the thing that we get to see that I don't think a lot of other people get to see is how many people message us and engage with our content and ask us, hey, I saw this video, I saw this post, like how close is the nearest F3 to me? There have been hundreds of people that have messaged that this year, like through our Facebook. And not only that, but there's also been family members that have seen the pictures we've posted, and I said, hey, that's my uncle, or that's my son, or that's my dad, you know. And it's just cool. Like we were live streaming on Facebook for one of our convergences this past year, and someone popped up there and said, hey, that's my dad, you know. So it's just cool to see that engagement. I think that's really stood out to me this year. But also the amount of guys that are sharing about F3 on their personal Facebook or personal Instagram or personal spheres of influence, because we get tagged and all that too. If you're on social media, that has been really cool to see as well. Because there'll be times when, right when Smokey's starfished, Rep Sleepy and a couple of the Smokies guys would always share our content and put their own blurb of, hey, this is what F3 has meant to me. This is why I go to F3. You should go to F3. And so to see all that has been really cool for me. Just the engagement I think we've gotten from our social media side, our comms side. The emails have been awesome, by the way. Like that has kept us really engaged, I would say, from a podcast perspective, because we get to read those, obviously, and then say, hey, what do you think about this? But it also, I think, helps highlight some of the things we would all miss because we're not working out with the same dudes around the entire region every week. So there are things at different AOs that we won't be a part of, but we get to read about from the newsletter. So that has been a highlight I've really enjoyed this year too. Yeah. Awesome. So as we kind of close our time and look at maybe the last couple minutes here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to read something that Captain Crunch, so he's who started this whole thing over 8 years ago in Knoxville, and has been very involved, very influential in the region in different ways now, but very involved over the past 8 years. And so I want to read something that he put together for a group of us to go through earlier this year. And maybe we all look towards 2024. What are you expectant of? What are you looking forward to as we continue in 2024? And Kickflip, I know you have mentioned a couple times. Hey, I don't know if we were all in the SLT at the same time, like last year or this year, and guys will rotate on and off of SLT, and that's great. I think a goal of mine would be, I hope there is somewhat of a different table next year, like different leaders to step into these roles. If it's the same guys in the same roles, that's not always a bad thing. But for all you guys out there in the region, like we need you to step up because you have ways that you can serve very uniquely with your giftings and skill set that we just can't do. So that would be something I'm looking forward to, that this table would change and grow, and there would be people to step up into those roles. But here's something that Captain Crunch let us in. It's called a Gauge. And the big theme that he walked through with us, I think 4 weeks or a little bit longer maybe, was change is inevitable, growth is intentional. And I know we have done some really awesome things this year. We're going to do some really awesome things next year. And that's what I would hope to continue. I think we, like you said, I forgot about Smokies. Sorry, guys. Forgot that we starfished y'all earlier this year. But the amount of growth that we've seen from that perspective is incredible. And I want that to continue. I think we'll continue to see that. But as you look towards 2024, what are you expectant of? What are you hoping to see out of our guys and out of the region and out of our community we have with F3?
Good. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Just because what you said just now sparked something in me. I mentioned earlier that we thought of last year about this time, what is the focus for next year's going to be? And we came up with a mission. And likewise, this year we've been talking about that same thing. I actually want to change it right now.
This is live, guys. This is live.
I love that. We said for calendar year 24, what the region can focus on is the word grow. Mm-hmm. And grow, in my mind, is really not we're not talking AO, we're not talking region. I'm talking about in every man, I want to see growth. I like that phrase. Growth is intentional. That can be our focus for the year. And that every man internalize that and believe it in his heart and act on it is what I would love to see. Yeah. It's not going to happen by accident. No man is going to grow in calendar year 24 on accident, in his fitness, in his fellowship, or in his faith, or in his leadership. But if he's intentional, every man in our packs could finish calendar year 24 and reflect back and say, that was a transformative year for me. Yeah. And how do we as a region, we as individual areas of operations, we as just men who have other men that they care about in their shield lock or just shoulder to shoulder with them during a workout, how do we inspire one another to internalize that and act on it? And just continually refocusing and resharpening one another. Growth is intentional, and we have to stay moving forward, or else we're going to be falling backward. So,
you heard it here first. There we go. I love that. I think that's cool.
I think we've got almost a quorum here. If we can vote on it now, we'll change it.
All right. Yeah, there we go.
Growth is intentional would be a great way to focus our thoughts about everything that the region's going to. We've got 1,000 opportunities to do 1,000 different things. Some of them have nothing to do with what our mission is, which is to inspire men to be leaders in their families, in their workplaces, in their communities. but that could focus all of our thoughts for the years to say everything we do, we want to say it's promoting intentional growth in the men that we serve.
Yeah.
And tagging
Good
on
word.
that, I think part of that growth also is reaching back to those guys that aren't coming. You know, life happens to all of us, and so the guy that EHG, is he coming? If he's not coming, why isn't he coming?
I've heard that
So
quite a lot.
why don't we go back? You know, we've got some packs miner, we've got some things that help us track that. But if we all just brought one person back into the fold, I mean, they have been exposed to F3. They came for a while and they've been disengaged for whatever reason, but we can't forget about those guys too. So we want to be outward focused, but nothing wrong with bringing some of those guys back. And so, as a second F, that's where the fellowship comes in. If you can't get out here in the morning, you can still be engaged with this community with the second F opportunities. Come have coffee with us. Come have beer with us one night. Come fill in an event here. And so if you guys have ideas, then get together and like Onstar said, let's plan them together. I can't do everything by myself. Nantan Kickflip can't do it by himself. Steam's not running comms by himself. We all need to pitch in. We all need that community of guys. We want to inspire you to be the next guy to lead. And if we stay in these roles, we're robbing you guys of an opportunity. So we're all going to get out of the way at some point because we expect you to fill that role. So let's reach back out, kick guys out here, and let's find the next leader of these things.
Can I say who's really good at that? And he's not here, but Pele just is incredible at that. He has reached out to more guys at the Asylum PM and has shared this in the COT that he hasn't seen in a while that have dropped off. Like we go through the really hot months in the evening and it's just not fun to work out and all the time. And it gets really cold. But he has shared stories of where he has texted guys like, hey man, I haven't seen you in a while. And the guys responded and said, dude, great to hear from you. Thank you for checking in. I've just been traveling a lot. I haven't been able to make it, and that just popped in my head of those guys. And I've heard from multiple guys this year. I mean, more than 3, which doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of a year, like who aged you? Yeah, like does he come anymore? No, man, doesn't really show up anymore. I hate that that's a common thing, or I've heard that more than a couple times. And so, you think about like why you started coming out to F3, why that dude started coming out to F3. That's a great point, which goes back to the intentional growth. Boom. Onstar.
I think on this topic of not hanging on or changing the guys who are at the leadership, I encourage anyone who's interested in any of the roles in F3, talk to the guy who's currently in the role. I think any of us here would be open to having another hand, to having someone help, or to having someone, or even more than just someone, like many people sharing in. And it can be, if you don't have the time to take on full-on a leadership role right now, but you want to be plugged into that, a little bit of your time could go a long way in helping plan an event, helping plan an activity, or just supporting one of the leaders. And maybe at a later point, you're becoming that leader. So I think that's another great way to promote intentional growth. Look at where do you want to be, or where do you want to see yourself, and start moving there. If you can't sprint there right now, start taking your first steps there. And I think that would be very helpful if you don't feel ready yet to be the AOQ or be the first FQ or whatever position that you would like to have. Talk to that leader and see how can I help you? How can I start learning from you? How can I support you? Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity.
And the pay makes it worthwhile. So you get the pay structure, bonus structure is pretty amazing.
The benefits are incredible.
Plugged in to find out.
That's right. I will say a great example of that too is I think some AOs do this, and feel free to share with these guys that do it, but we have a second F Q essentially at the Asylum PM drum major who organizes a lot of our like board meetings, trivia nights. The Asylum PM did a host of dinners or cookouts this summer at different guys' houses, so he's been really great at that. Like things the AOQ probably can do, but drum major is like super stoked about doing that. Like that's just part of his gifting. So that goes along to those guys. If you're an AOQ or a site Q, look at those guys that are talented in that area and say, hey, would you mind helping out with this? Because you're seeing things I can't
I
probably.
think it's a great idea. And, if you got a small AO, maybe you don't need as many people. But if you've got a big AO, and that AOQ could use some help with a first F or a second F or a third F. There's lots of, shield lock's one of those things that we've tried multiple times to get off the ground. And it's so hard because it always comes down to time. It's hard to find a time. You've already given up your mornings. Life happens. It's hard to get that group together. So it'd be great to find a way to get that third F off the ground. But if there are guys within that each AO that would step up and handle a piece of that and work with the AOQ, that's what it's all about. We don't need somebody to give hundreds of hours or tens of hours, but single hours here and there really help this organization. And it helps that individual to get plugged into.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Guys, thank you. Any last words or any last kind of thoughts as we wrap up this conversation? And
I've got maybe just one more or two more. I'll be quick. I know we're trying to wrap it up. But looking into the year, something else I'm really excited about. With the newsletter, we have been walking through the Q source. And if you're listening and don't know what that is, there's 52 points in the Q source. We look at one Q point every week. And it's the F3 manual for virtuous leadership. So we've pulled it apart and we've looked at it 1 week at a time. We're nearing the end of that. We've got 2 left and then we'll be done. So instead of just starting over, what we've decided as a region, and I've got about a dozen men already committed to help do this, every week we're going to have a piece. We're going to reveal a piece of F3 Knoxville's history or culture, if you want to say it like that. And just explain it, because I was looking at some numbers recently, and in less than 12 months, we've had more than 200 F&Gs. Wow. More than 200 men have joined our ranks, and many or most of them may not have a full appreciation for what we do, why we do. I wonder how many people listening to this, we talk about card and we open by talking about that, maybe don't even know what we're talking about. And so to be more intentional about infusing our culture into all of these new men, I think is going to be a really fun thing to do. Yeah. Because F3 Knoxville has an amazing story and is having an amazing end. For 8+ years now, has really changed men's lives. And I want the newer men in our ranks to feel like they're stepping into and now they're part of this amazing story. So I'm excited about that.
That would be cool. That's going to be really neat.
Yep.
I'm excited to hear from the guys we haven't heard from in a while or seen from in a while. I know there's some guys that have been here since day one or very close to day one that have a lot of insight to share that, just life comes up. Like you said, sometimes it's hard to go consistently every week.
Play disc golf with a guy. His name's Bueller, and he doesn't come around anymore. He's like kind of just phased out of it. But he's like, we used to do this thing. We'd run. There were 8 AOs at the time. We'd run the whole thing between them. It's like, what events did we do before you got involved? Why did we do it? What's going on? So you hear some of these stories. It's kind of fade. You can't pull them back in because life changes, injuries happen, things happen. But it's cool to hear. What was it like before you were here? What's it going to be like after? What impact are you going to leave?
Yeah. Very cool.
One last quick thing, because if you would have asked me last year what was going to define our region for the year, I would have never projected out what ended up, I think, defining our region for the year. But if you would ask me the same thing today, I think what is going to define F3 Knoxville for all of 2024 is the Grow Rough Training event. That's coming up April 24th, 26th. And it's basically a 1.5-day long intense leadership academy. Followed by what they call the Crucible Ruck. It's 12 to 15 hours under rope overnight. And that's an amazing event. We're actually not putting it on. We are facilitating the space for F3 National to come in. And they've got a cadre of people who do this. And they're going to bring their show here. And they're going to run it for us. And everybody I know who has been in the GTE, Grow Up Training event, I've heard multiple people use the same adjective to describe it, and that is life-changing.
Yeah.
It's a life-changing experience. So I think that will largely define what F3 Knoxville is all about in 2024. I'm excited about it.
That'll probably be one of the largest events I think we have been a part of.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about all the large events we put on over the years, and yeah, that's huge, right? I mean, I did a GTE in Chattanooga with Abort and Captain and Woodjack and all those guys, like 2017 or 18, and that's the exact word, like changed my life, you know, like. And if you're doing F3 and thinking, I don't know if I could do that, like I don't know if I have what it takes to do that. Well, you do, number one. Number two, Blindside, our regional ruck queue, and Onstar, and a slew of other guys that are a part of this too, are putting together some awesome resources to get us trained up and ready to rock and roll for this weekend. So even if you don't have the gear, or if you don't have a lot of the stuff that you might think you need, there are guys that are willing to loan that out to you. And it's a team event. That is the big thing. So I am pumped for that too. We've already had some guys sign up from other regions. Got some F3 Chattanooga guys signed up. So it'll draw from a good number of regions. Yeah, good point. Mermaid, Onstar, any closing thoughts?
These guys have heard enough from me. Probably don't want to hear from me anymore.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think that we've said all that there is to be said. Or all that we can competently say in a decent amount of time, because we could probably talk all day about everything that's been done in 2023.
There you go.
As we could see when we did the State of the Region podcast, that was supposed to be a one-part podcast, and it became a two-parter because
that's right.
Oh wow, we did a lot. So
yeah,
we've done a lot. I think we, as a region, not as individuals here, but as a region, we have plenty of reasons to be proud of what we've done, and I'm really excited for 2024.
Yeah.
Hi.
Let's say one more thing. Honor to you guys, the three of you at this table, and every other man. So, Pete, I appreciate and honor you, but particularly you two men at the moment. Two of our three celebrity podcasters sitting here at the table. I just honor you for the investment you make in making this happen. And I just really appreciate it. Now the region does it well. So it's pretty cool here to sit at a table and be in the presence of making this happen. I listen to your voices, and I really enjoy the podcast. It's been fun to
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Shameless plug, 5-star review, Spotify. So, hey, let's go around as a typical F3 workout. We're going to do Namorama, and then go ahead and throw where you're posting this week as a HC.
All right. So, Arthur Diaz, 36, Onstar. I'll be posting at Asylum PM and AM.
Oh, there you go. Bingo.
Every day this week? You're going to make it hard to commit for all of them?
8 days a week, yeah.
All of them.
Come on, I'm going to push you for it. I'm Bradley Romers, 44 Mermaid, and I'll be at Shamrock on Q tomorrow.
That's right.
At Shamrock on Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and make the hard commit for 5 straight mornings.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'll probably engage in an OTB run on Saturday. So I usually get about 6 days a week, so you can hold me accountable to that.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
I think they do a 42 kickflip, and tomorrow I plan to be at Shamrock with my buddy Snaggletooth. It's supposed to be there. He just moved to the area.
Don't tease me.
We're gonna welcome him at Shamrock, his new home at.
Oh, I'm excited.
So I want to be there. I want to see him there. Tuesday I plan to be at the project. Wednesday I'll be at the OTB in Cars. I'm on cue this week. And Thursday I plan to be Shamrock for the shovel flag handoff from Betty to Eliza. Friday, depending on I'm traveling, but I may make it one workout.
It may be Mermaid to Eliza. Betty, new one. May or may not be there, but you can hang that
both Betty and
I've been there recently. I know how that goes.
Eliza's definitely getting the flag, regardless.
Thank you.
Dan Ensign 29, Steam, Asylum PM, Tuesday, Thursday, and I'll jump on the HC bandwagon tomorrow at Shamrock.
Yeah.
Partly because I live 5 minutes away, and I just don't go as much as I need to, but I need to. So I'll see y'all in the morning. See you in the group. All right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. Listeners, thank you for being part of F3 Knoxville, and we're looking forward to a great year together. Iron sharpens iron.
See you in the room.
And we're back. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the first part of the show. That was a great conversation we got to have together. Big shout out to Kickflip, to Onstar, and Mermaid for taking the time to have that conversation. They shared some incredible insight and wisdom just from their reflection on 2023 and looking into 2024. Now, you may have heard this earlier on in the show before we started the conversation. There are two guys that were not able to make it to the conversation that we had in person, but we really wanted to hear their perception and hear their insight and wisdom because they have a ton to offer the region. They have been working incredibly hard for the region and for the men of our region to invigorate them and their leadership of their families and their spheres of influence. And those guys are our Weasel Shaker, Pele, and our third FQ, Ocho. Now, these guys were kind enough to respond to some messages I sent them and actually send in an audio file of them recording a response to some of the questions you just heard Onstar, Mermaid, and Kickflip and I talk about, specifically with, hey, what was your reaction to the unfortunate passing of Cardinal? You know, what did that rise up in you? How did that have an impact on you? I also asked them to share a little bit of their take on 2023 from their position as the Weasel Shaker, as the third FQ, and also what they're looking forward to, maybe what they're expectant of in 2024. And guys, you are going to want to listen to both of these men's responses. They share right from the heart, right from the get-go, and I had chills running down my arms when I was listening to their responses. They are incredibly well spoken, incredible high impact men, and they both have a great take on this past year, but a great take on how they envision servant leadership and the invigoration of leadership in our region for 2024. So without further ado, we're going to start with Pele, the Weasel Shaker for F3 Knoxville. Here he is giving his take on Cardinal 2023 and looking into 2024.
Hey everyone, this is John Lindberg, 51, Pele. I've been a part of F3 for 6 years this coming January, and I'm currently the Weasel Shaker for the F3 Knoxville region as of August this past year. In terms of 2023, it was really the most extraordinary year I've had in F3. And to quote me some Dickens right off the bat, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And of course, at the beginning of the year, we started off with just an unimaginable tragedy with losing our brother Cardinal out at the Rampart while he was just starting his VQ. And I remember that day vividly. I was working at home that day, and I remember seeing snippets of information starting to appear on Slack in the morning. And then I just felt this growing sense of horror as everyone started to put the pieces together and realized that, you know, what had happened and the tragedy that had occurred. And, you know, I got very little work done that day. I just, I kept up to date with the information coming across on Slack, and, eventually the news that he had passed away and we had lost him was just heartbreaking. And then, we learned the details a little bit more about who he was. I had never met him. He'd only been in F3 for a couple of weeks, as I recall. And, he was out there leading this new band of brothers that he had met, I think, at a Christmas parade. And he had left a wife and family behind. He was the pastor of a church. Somebody passed around a picture of what he looked like on Slack. And so we, got to know a little bit more about him. But it was just incredible. And he had also had another tragedy in his family. He had lost his father-in-law to a fire like a week or two before that. So just the family had been through so much, and just to learn this news over the course of a day was just devastating. But after the shock wore off a bit, after we stopped kind of reeling from the blow that we received, we got to work, doing what F3 does. We circled the wagons immediately. We made sure that those brothers that are out at Rampart, where the tragedy happened. We made sure that they knew they weren't alone, that we may not have been there when the tragedy happened, but we sure as hell were not going to let them go through this without our full and unconditional support. We were in lockstep with them all the way as they processed and grieved. I remember across the region, things were popping up and happening. I led a prayer vigil at the asylum that night, and it was on super short notice. It was a cold night, and I expected, nobody to be there, or maybe one or two people, but like 20 people showed up, and our Nantan, who had been, doing damage control and just kind of figuring out what was going on and helping and supporting our group all day long, he showed up. And so, we had a prayer vigil and just honored our brother. I felt, the need to do something like that, and others did across the region as well. And we immediately, as a region, canceled our Saturday workouts that week and agreed to have a convergence over at Rampart to support those brothers and to support the family that Cardinal left behind. And, guys cooked food. They wore red in support of Cardinal. They hugged together when they saw each other at the Rampart. They cried together during and after the workout. They sang. And we made a pledge to Cardinal's wife to help as we could as a group, both financially and with our labor, to just make sure she wasn't alone in her struggle and her grief as she processed what just happened in the following days and weeks as well. So after the convergence, I kind of thought that was the end of it. I thought things might go back to a little bit of normalcy, but to my incredible surprise, it was really only just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, we received tributes from all over the country and all over the world. I remember seeing videos from F3 groups over in Germany, England, Africa, and of course all across our country as well. People, doing their tributes wearing red shirts or going around in the circle at the end of during the Name-a-Rama, and everybody, saying that they were Cardinal, just as a tribute to him, and just, indicating that, as brothers, we're all one, whether we're in Knoxville or if we're in Naperville, Illinois, or if we're in, California. It was really moving to see how the F3 community across the world really bonded together over this. And then there was the financial support that we provided to the family. We set up a GoFundMe page, and as I recall, we met the monetary goal of that page within hours, I think. And then by the end of the week, I think it was up to six figures, and it just kept growing. And so the generosity and the willingness of F3 community to help out this family that had gone through such tragedy was just incredibly moving. And it was just... what more evidence do you need that F3 touches men's lives deeply and brings them together for just, a common cause of leading virtuous lives, and to witness a response like that? It was just so humbling and moving as, I saw F3 just bonding together like I never would have imagined. And I'm never going to forget that. It was just an incredible positive, I guess, if you will, out of incredible tragedy. And then at the end of the year, the Rampart, the AO where Cardinal was leading his VQ and passed away, it starfished away from F3 Knoxville region and started their own region. It just seemed like such a fitting way to move on in the direction of growth and hope from the way we started the year. So, in terms of my biggest takeaway from 2023, that was pretty much it. It was just how united and strong we are as brothers, and how we lock shields in terms of a crisis, and how our true colors show out when tragedy occurs, or when a brother or a family of a brother needs help. So what am I looking forward to or expected of in 2024? I want more of the same. I want more of this community, this positive unity that we have in a fractured and negative country, and just the fun times going through the suck and the cold and the rain and the darkness with the other men that I would be proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with anytime and any day. I want more of that, and I just want to build on the growth of F3 Knoxville, and keep looking for sad clowns to try to bring more people into our fold, and to share our positive vision of what men can become as leaders in their community and as servants of God. So with that, I look forward to the new year, and let's go. I'll talk to you soon. Pele out.
Thank you, Pele. Big shout out to you, brother. Thank you for speaking right from the heart. Man, that was impactful. And all you podcast listeners out there, I hope that you found it to be impactful too. These guys that you've heard in these conversations, both the first part of the episode that was in person and also from Pele, I hope you know they are speaking with such authenticity and such honesty and right from the heart. It is coming right from the heart, and that's just who they are as men. And so I am grateful for that, and we are very blessed to have them be actively serving in a servant leadership position within our region. So that brings me to our next and final speaker for the show. And I mean, I cannot think of a better high impact man to share with you guys. He sent me his audio, and I was ready to run through a brick wall. So without further ado, here is Ocho, our third FQ for F3 Knoxville.
Hey y'all, this is Matt Hudson, 50, Ocho. I've been a part of F3 out at the project for about a year and a half now. And I've also had the privilege of serving F3 Knoxville as third FQ since late March of this year. About this time last year, a bunch of the Rampart packs bombed the project at a beatdown. It was a great day. It was cold. It was dark. That morning, one of their new guys was with them, Cardinal. He hadn't been working out with them all that long. After the beatdown, with us both being pastors, we found a booth at the Dunkin' where we were having cafeteria, and we both just talked about how much the F3 community had come to mean to us in a really short time. It was so nice to finally have men who'd let us be men, real men, and who would see us as human and still at the same time press us to accelerate. We were both so grateful. I remember his heart in that. It was really sweet for us to get that chance to visit. So when word came just a little while later, a month or so later, that Cardinal passed at his VQ, my heart was broken. But I really was so encouraged to see all the men of Rampart and what has now become F3 Rocco band together and support each other and to support Cardinal's family. My own wife was floored by the way the men of this community banded together to serve Mrs. Cardinal. From all that, I'm reminded that the relationships and the time at F3 are an investment in other men that really does matter. It matters to me, and it matters to every other man who shows up in the gloom. And I think that's probably why one of my biggest takeaways from 2023 is the power of men to accelerate each other. Whether it's the challenges on Slack, whether it's the workouts that we do in the gloom, whether it's a shield lock and investing in another man, the F3 community is a powerhouse for change in the men who are participating in it. None of us has to be a rock star, but every man is doing something, even just by showing up, to challenge other men to step up in their own lives. So my 2023 takeaway is I'm just so impressed with all the men who showed up. And what I'm really looking forward to in this coming year of 2024, I'm looking forward to the growth that I believe is going to happen. I believe there are thousands of men in our area who are just waiting for an invitation and who are going to be better men once they come out and join us. And I believe that those men who are still yet to come are actually going to make us all stronger in our fitness and fellowship and faith. And I'm looking forward to that in 2024. So from out here at the project, this is Ocho signing off. Grace and peace to all of you.
That's one small step for man.